My phone rang at 7:12 a.m. My father's voice came through cold and flat. Grandpa died last night. We get everything. You get nothing. Then I heard my mother laughing in the background, not crying, laughing, saying, "Finally, you're out." I could have screamed. I could have begged. Instead, I looked across my kitchen table where my grandfather sat, very much alive, holding his coffee. Between us was a sealed envelope from his attorney, and I smiled. If you're interested in this topic, hit the like button, subscribe, and type "interested" in the comments, and I will give you a heart. Let me take you back to that exact moment because you need to understand how calculated this was. I'm sitting in my kitchen in Portland, Oregon. It's 7:12 in the morning, the kind of hour where your brain hasn't fully booted up yet, where bad news feels more real because you don't have your defenses ready. My phone buzzes on the counter. "Caller ID," says Dad. And here's the thing. My father doesn't call early unless he wants something or he's about to deliver a verdict. There's no middle ground with him. No casual check-ins. No "how are you" conversations. Every call is transactional. Every word is currency. So when I see his name at 7:12 a.m., my stomach already knows something's wrong before my brain catches up. I answer, "Hello." And his voice comes through the speaker cold, flat, rehearsed, like he'd practiced this line in the mirror. "Grandpa died last night. Funeral's Friday. He left us everything. You get nothing." For one full second, I don't even breathe. Not because I believe him, because I can hear it. In the background, clear as day, my mother is laughing. Not a nervous laugh. Not a grief-stricken, losing her mind kind of laugh. A bright, triumphant, "we finally won" kind of laugh. And then her voice cuts through, loud enough that she knows I'll hear it. "Finally, you're out." Out. Like I was a tenant they'd been trying to evict. Like I was a problem they'd finally solved. Like my grandfather's death was the punchline to a joke they'd been setting up for years. I could have argued. I could have screamed. I could have begged for details, for proof, for anything that made sense. That's what they expected. That's what they wanted. But here's what they didn't know. Here's what made that phone call the biggest mistake of their lives. I wasn't alone. I looked across my kitchen table and there he was, my grandfather, Harold Carter, 82 years old, sitting in the chair he'd sat in 100 times before, holding his coffee mug like nothing in the world could move him unless he chose to move. His hands looked older than they used to, thin skin, veins more visible, the kind of hands that have worked for decades and earned every line. But they were steady. His eyes were calm, not confused, not disoriented, not the eyes of a man on his deathbed. The eyes of a man who knew exactly what was happening and had planned for it. And on the table in front of him, positioned carefully between us like a chess piece, was a sealed envelope. Thick paper, attorney letterhead in the corner, my name handwritten in neat, deliberate script. The seal wasn't decorative. It was the kind that snaps when you break it, the kind that's designed to be evidence, not sentiment. I didn't respond to my father. I didn't gasp. I didn't cry. I didn't give him the satisfaction of a reaction. I simply pressed one button on my phone and set the call on speaker. Then I slid the phone across the table until it sat directly between me and Grandpa, like a microphone in the center of an interrogation room. My father kept talking because my silence always makes him assume he's winning. He mistakes quiet for defeat. He always has. "You thought you were smart," he continued, voice dripping with condescension, "cutting us off, playing independent. Well, now it doesn't matter. The house, the accounts, the land, everything is ours." I watched Grandpa's face. Not anger, not shock, just a small tightening near his jaw, like he was marking each sentence the way a judge marks perjury. My mother's voice slid closer to the phone in the background, and she sweetened her tone the way she does when she wants cruelty to sound reasonable. "Come to the funeral," she said, saccharine and sharp at the same time. "Or don't. Either way, you're not family anymore." Grandpa's gaze shifted to the envelope. He didn't open it. He didn't need to. He tapped the seal once with his fingertip. One quiet tap, as if reminding himself that there was a line they hadn't read yet. A bomb they didn't know was armed. My father's voice sharpened, impatient now. Are you even listening? I kept my voice flat, emotionless. I'm listening. He exhaled like he was disappointed I wasn't crying yet. Good. Then you'll do the right thing and stay away from the attorney's office. We've already handled it. Handled it. That word made my stomach drop like an elevator with cut cables. Because in my father's vocabulary, handled means paperwork, signatures, people being cornered when they're too emotional to think straight. Handled means someone got played. And then I noticed something else. Something small, but critical. Grandpa's left hand wasn't on his coffee mug anymore. It was resting on a thin manila folder beside the envelope. Not thick, not dramatic, just one of those plain folders people use when they want the contents to speak for themselves. He'd come prepared. This wasn't improvisation. This was a plan. My father kept going, voice gaining confidence as he heard nothing but my controlled breathing on the line. We're driving to the cabin tomorrow, he said. We're taking inventory. We'll send you whatever personal junk you left there. My mother laughed again, lighter this time, almost giddy. If there's anything worth sending. I stared at the phone screen. The call timer kept counting up. 7:13, 7:14. Proof that this wasn't a nightmare. This was documented. This was real. And then Grandpa did something that made every hair on my arm stand up. He leaned slightly toward the phone. Not fast, not dramatic, just the slow, deliberate movement of a man deciding that a door is about to close. His eyes met mine for 1 second. A question without words. Are you ready? I nodded once. Grandpa picked up the sealed envelope and held it up at eye level, angled toward me like he was reminding me it existed for a reason. Then he set it down again and placed 2 fingers on the manila folder. He didn't open either one. He just listened. My father was still talking now, using the tone he reserves for people he believes have no options left. Don't cause problems, he said, authoritative and final. You'll embarrass yourself. It's done. Grandpa's expression didn't change, but his thumb slowly slid the envelope closer to the phone, positioning it like ammunition being loaded into a chamber. And then he leaned in, toward the speaker, toward my parents' voices, toward the lie they'd built. And he spoke. One word, clear enough to slice through their performance, like a scalpel through skin. Hello. On the other end of the line, the laughter stopped so abruptly it felt like someone had cut the audio feed. My father didn't speak. My mother didn't breathe. For 2 full seconds, there was nothing but silence and the faint crackle of a phone connection trying to carry the weight of what just happened. And then my father's voice came back. Thin, disbelieving, strangled. Dad. Grandpa didn't answer him right away. He looked down at the sealed envelope, then at me, then back at the phone, like he was deciding whether this conversation would be a warning or the beginning of something official. Because whatever my parents had handled, Grandpa had handled something too, and he had brought proof to my kitchen table. For a few seconds after Grandpa said hello, the line went dead silent. So silent I could hear the small electrical hum of my kitchen light fixture. So silent I could hear my own pulse in my ears. Then my father's voice came back, thin, disbelieving, like his brain was trying to reboot after a system crash. Dad. My mother didn't speak at all at first. I could hear her breathing, short, sharp inhales, like she was trying to decide whether to panic or perform innocence. Grandpa didn't give them the mercy of confusion. He stayed close to the phone and spoke in the same calm tone he used when he taught me how to do things the right way the first time. I heard everything, he said. My father tried to recover control immediately, words tumbling out fast and defensive. Dad, this is a misunderstanding. We got a call. They said no. Grandpa cut in, still calm, still steady. You didn't say you got a call. You said you got everything. My father went quiet again. The kind of quiet that happens when someone realizes they've been caught on tape. My mother's voice slid in then, soft and sweet like honey poured over broken glass. "Dad, thank God," she said, voice trembling in that strategic way she does. "We were so scared. We thought—" Grandpa didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "You laughed," he said. One sentence, one fact, and it landed harder than any accusation. My mother's sweetness cracked immediately. "That wasn't—" she started. "I'm sitting here," Grandpa continued, voice still level, "with your granddaughter, at her kitchen table, with a sealed envelope from my attorney." My father's tone shifted, less theatrical now, more urgent. "Why are you with her?" he demanded, like I was a threat he needed to neutralize. "She's been poisoning you against us." Grandpa's eyes met mine for a second. Then he looked back at the phone like he was speaking to strangers, not family. "I'm with her," he said, "because I knew you'd try something the moment you thought you could." My stomach tightened, because Grandpa wasn't guessing. He was confirming. He'd predicted this. He'd seen it coming. My father tried another angle. Anger, louder this time, like volume could erase evidence. "Are you even thinking clearly?" he snapped. "Do you know what day it is?" Grandpa didn't flinch. "It's Tuesday," he said, "and at 7:12 this morning, you called my granddaughter to tell her I was dead." He paused, letting that sink in. "And you told her to stay away from the attorney's office." I felt my pulse jump, because that wasn't just a threat. That was a plan, a coordinated plan. My mother's voice came back sharper now, defensive. "We said that because she causes problems. She shows up and makes scenes." Grandpa's tone stayed flat, surgical. "She shows up with documents," he said. "That's what you're afraid of." Then he did something that changed the entire temperature of the call. He didn't argue about morality. He didn't lecture about family. He asked a procedural question. "Why?" Grandpa said slowly, deliberately. "Did your bank receive a death notification request at 6:48 this morning?" My breath caught. I looked at Grandpa sharply because I hadn't even known that. My father made a sound, half cough, half choke. "What?" he said. "What are you talking about?" Grandpa slid the manila folder toward me and opened it for the first time. Inside was a single printed page with a bank logo and an alert header. He tapped it once and pushed it toward the phone as if my father could see it through the speaker. "This," Grandpa said, "is an automated fraud alert. It came to my email at 6:52 a.m. for minutes after someone tried to initiate a deceased customer process under my name." My mother's voice went thin, almost a whisper. "That's not us." Grandpa didn't debate. He read the line that mattered. "It lists the submitting contact as," he paused, looking down at the paper, "my son's email." The kitchen felt suddenly smaller, like the walls had moved in, because my father wasn't just running his mouth on a phone call. He'd touched a system. He'd left a digital trail. And systems don't care about feelings. They care about logs. My father raised his voice again, desperate now. "That's fake," he snapped. "She's showing you fake paperwork." Grandpa's eyes didn't even blink. "It came from the bank," he said, "not from her." Then Grandpa leaned closer to the speaker and dropped his voice, still calm, but colder now, harder. "Here's what's going to happen," he said. "At 9 a.m., I have an appointment at my attorney's office. She will be there, and this call will be played." My mother's breath hitched audibly. My father tried to interrupt. "Dad, you can't." Grandpa cut him off with a single sentence. "You're done talking." There was a pause, short, sharp, like my father couldn't process being silenced by the man he'd just declared dead. Then my mother tried one last pivot, voice trembling in the most calculated way. "Dad, please," she whispered. "You're not well. You shouldn't be traveling. Let us handle it." Grandpa looked at me, then at the envelope, then back at the phone. "I'm well enough to sign," he said, and well enough to revoke anything I've ever given you. Revoke. That word hit like a door slamming. Because my parents had been handling things for years, access accounts, permissions, things that only work if Grandpa's authority is already in their hands. My father's tone turned ugly, mask finally dropping. "If you do this," he hissed, "you'll regret it." Grandpa didn't respond emotionally. He responded with the kind of calm that makes threats sound childish. "I already regret what I tolerated," he said. Then he looked at me. "Put the call recording on," he said quietly. I tapped record. The little red timer appeared on my screen. Grandpa knew exactly what he was doing. He wanted their voices, their laughter, their certainty that I was out. He wanted it frozen in time, because people like my parents rewrite the past the moment the future stops obeying them. My father realized it too. His voice changed instantly, suddenly softer, suddenly careful. "Dad," he said, tone shifting like a chameleon. "Listen, we can talk in person. Don't do this in front of strangers." Grandpa's eyes stayed steady. "You already did it in front of strangers," he replied. "You did it at the bank." Then he said the line that made my stomach drop again. "And someone was at my cabin this morning." I went still. "What?" Grandpa didn't look away from the phone. "Lockbox tamper alert," he said. 10 minutes ago." My father inhaled sharply, barely audible, but there. Grandpa heard it too. He leaned in and said, quiet and precise, "Tell your cousin to step away from the door." The call went silent for 1 second. Then, faintly far in the background, on my father's end, I heard a different voice, panicked and fast. "Hey, someone's here." Grandpa's face didn't change. Mine did, because suddenly this wasn't just a lie on a phone call. This was movement, real-time coordination, multiple people, multiple locations. Grandpa ended the call with one tap. Clean. Final. Then he slid the sealed envelope toward me and spoke like every word was evidence. "We're going to the attorney," he said, "and then we're going to the cabin." My hands were shaking as I grabbed my keys. And right as we stood up, my phone buzzed again. An alert I'd never seen before. Cabin camera. Front porch motion. I opened it. The live feed loaded in shaky bars of signal, then sharpened just enough for me to see exactly what I was looking at. A man on Grandpa's porch, tool bag on his shoulder, reaching toward the lockbox. And behind him, half in frame, half hiding near the tree-line, was my father's cousin, the one who always knew people, always had a friend who could fix things. The cousin was watching the road, like he was waiting for us to arrive too late. In part 2, I'm going to tell you what we found at that attorney's office. I'm going to tell you about the document my father tried to file while Grandpa was dead. I'm going to tell you about the guardianship petition, the fake witness statements, the court date that had already been scheduled. Because this wasn't just about money. This was about erasing Grandpa, legally, medically, officially, so they could take everything before anyone could stop them. Stay with me. This gets so much worse before it gets better. The porch camera feed loaded in shaky bars of signal, then sharpened just enough for me to recognize the shape of what I was seeing. A man with a tool bag kneeling by the lockbox. Not Grandpa, not a neighbor, a stranger doing a job. And behind him, half in frame, half hiding near the edge of the woods, was my father's cousin, the one who always knew people, always had connections, always had a friend who could fix paperwork or handle things quietly. Grandpa stared at the screen without blinking. He didn't gasp. He didn't curse. He simply nodded once, like a man watching a trap finally catch what it was designed to catch. "Record it," he said. I hit screen record. Red dot. Proof. Then Grandpa did something that made my pulse spike. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a second phone. Old school, no apps, no drama. Just a flip phone with a number already saved. He called. A man answered on the second ring. "Sheriff's office." "This is Harold Carter," Grandpa said, voice steady as stone. I have a live camera feed showing an attempted unlawful entry at my cabin. I'm alive. My son is falsely reporting my death." There was a pause on the other end. Then the deputy's tone changed instantly, because real names carry weight in small counties. "Mr. Carter," the deputy said, voice sharpening with focus, "where are you right now?" "On my way to my attorney," Grandpa replied, calm and precise. "But I need a unit at my cabin now." Grandpa gave the address from memory. No hesitation, no stumbling. Then he added one line that sounded almost casual, but I felt how sharp it was. "And I want the responding unit to note this. There was a bank death notification attempt made this morning under my son's email." The deputy didn't argue, didn't ask for clarification, just said, "Understood. We're dispatching." Grandpa ended the call and looked at me. Keys, folder, envelope. I grabbed everything. We got into his truck. Grandpa still drove, despite my protests, and pulled out of the driveway with the sealed envelope sitting between us like a loaded gun. On the highway, I kept the cabin feed open on my phone. The man with the tool bag shifted, tried the lockbox again, then stood and talked to my cousin. I couldn't hear audio, but I didn't need to. His gestures were clear. "It's locked. I need a code." My cousin pointed at the door, impatient, done waiting. Then, and this was the worst part, the locksmith walked right up to the cabin door itself. Like the lockbox was just step one. Grandpa's jaw tightened for the first time. He didn't look scared. He looked offended. Not for himself, for the house, for the audacity of it. "People like that," he said quietly, eyes on the road, "don't stop when paper fails." 20 minutes later, we pulled into the attorney's parking lot. The office was calm, polished, glass door, neutral carpet, framed certificates on the walls, the kind of place where families pretend they're civilized because the walls are beige and everyone speaks in quiet tones. Inside, the attorney greeted Grandpa with professional warmth, then glanced at me like she already knew my face from old stories. "Mr. Carter," she said, "I'm glad you're here in person." Grandpa nodded toward me. "She stays with me." Then he placed the sealed envelope on the desk like he was laying down evidence at trial. "Before we do anything," he said, "I want my son's call recorded and preserved." The attorney's eyes sharpened immediately. "You have the call." I held up my phone. Recorded. Speaker. Their voices. Everything. The attorney nodded once. All business now. "Good." Grandpa leaned forward, calm as stone. "Now," he said, "tell me what my son tried to file." The attorney exhaled slowly, then pulled up her computer screen and turned it slightly so Grandpa could see. "There was an inquiry this morning," she said carefully, "from your son. He asked whether a death certificate had been issued yet, and whether he could proceed with immediate estate administration." My stomach dropped. He asked for a death certificate for a man sitting 2 feet away from me. Grandpa didn't flinch. "Yes," he said, like it was exactly what he'd expected. The attorney clicked again, pulling up another document. "There was also an attempted change request," she continued, voice lower now, "to update your beneficiary contact information on 2 accounts." Grandpa's eyes narrowed slightly. "Which accounts?" The attorney hesitated just a fraction, then said it. "The investment account," she said, "and the cabin property file." Grandpa sat back in his chair, and in that moment I realized the truth. This wasn't about leaving me nothing. It was about locking me out fast enough that I couldn't interfere while they moved money, transferred assets, and rewrote access before anyone could stop them. Grandpa opened the manila folder and slid the bank alert across the desk. The attorney's eyes flicked down. She read it. Her expression changed. "That's a fraud alert," she said quietly. Grandpa nodded. "Exactly." Then he tapped the sealed envelope once, deliberately. "Now we open this," he said. The attorney nodded, but she was watching Grandpa carefully, like she knew the next 5 minutes would decide whether this stayed a family conflict or became a criminal case. Grandpa broke the seal slowly. No shaking hands. No hesitation. He pulled out a letter and a second document, thicker, stamped official. He read one line silently, then pushed it toward the attorney. "I want this filed today," he said. The attorney read it and went still. Then she looked up at Grandpa, voice lower than before. "This appoints an executor," she said. "Not your son." Grandpa nodded. "And it denies him access," she added, almost as if she couldn't believe how explicit it was. "Yes," Grandpa said, "because I know him." My throat tightened. The attorney swallowed, then slid the document into a tray labeled urgent. "Okay," she said, professional mask back in place. "We can file this. But once it's filed, your son will be notified." Grandpa's eyes didn't blink. "Let him," he said. Then he leaned toward her slightly. "And I want one more thing. A statement on the record that I'm alive, because he's already telling people I'm dead." The attorney nodded sharply. "We can do that." She printed a form. Grandpa signed it, clean, deliberate, steady handwriting. Then she turned her screen toward me. "Your father tried to access your grandfather's estate portal," she said. "He used an old password reset question." My stomach dropped. How would he know that? Grandpa answered before I could. "Because your mother filled out my forms," he said quietly. "For years." The room felt colder. The attorney looked up at Grandpa. "Mr. Carter," she said carefully, "do you have any reason to believe they have physical documents with your signature?" Grandpa's gaze went to me, then back to her. "Yes," he said, "and they tried to steal them this morning." My phone buzzed. Another cabin alert. I opened the feed. 2 sheriff vehicles were now in the driveway, lights flashing against patches of snow like blue knives cutting through the morning. The locksmith and my cousin froze. One deputy stepped out, hand near his belt, and shouted something we couldn't hear. Then the locksmith raised his hand slowly. My cousin did not. He backed toward the woods. Grandpa leaned closer to my phone, eyes hard. "Don't run," he murmured under his breath. On the feed, my cousin sprinted off camera. A deputy chased. The locksmith stayed, put, hand still raised. And then, because my family never does just one thing at a time, my phone buzzed again. Not an alert. A call. From my father. I stared at the screen. Grandpa stared too. He didn't tell me to answer. He simply slid the phone toward himself and said very quietly, "Let's see what story he tries now." My father's name glowed on my screen like a dare. I didn't touch it. Grandpa did. He slid my phone toward himself, hit speaker, and answered with the same calm voice he used when he wanted someone to expose themselves without realizing it. "Yes." For half a second, my father didn't speak, like his brain couldn't compute the sound of a dead man answering his daughter's phone. Then he recovered fast, too smooth, too practiced. "Dad," he said, "thank God. I'm coming to see you. We need to talk. Privately. Right now." Grandpa didn't take the bait. "About what?" he asked. My father exhaled like he was the reasonable one in this situation. "About her," he said. Then my stomach tightened. "She's manipulating you. She's isolating you. People are worried." People. That word is never about concern in my family. It's about leverage. It's about building a narrative. Grandpa glanced at the attorney. She gave a small nod and quietly tapped a button on her desk phone. Recording on her end, too. Redundancy. Proof stacked on proof. Grandpa spoke again, steady as ever. "At 7:12 this morning," he said, "you told my granddaughter I was dead." My father's voice went lighter, false surprise coating every syllable. "Dad, I didn't." "You did," Grandpa cut in, calm and factual. "And your wife laughed." Silence. Then my father's voice sharpened, mask slipping. "Fine," he snapped. "You want the truth? We did it because we had to protect what's ours before she steals it." The attorney's eyes lifted sharply. Mine went cold. Grandpa's tone didn't change. "What is ours?" he asked. "The estate," my father said, fast now, angry, defensive. The accounts, the cabin, the land. Dad, you don't understand how this works. If she gets involved, it becomes a mess. Grandpa leaned slightly toward the speaker, like he wanted every word clean on the recording. She is involved, he said. She's sitting beside me. My father's breath hitched, tiny but there. Then he pivoted hard, voice suddenly softer, almost pleading. Dad, listen, he said. Let's not do this through lawyers. I'll drive to you. We'll settle it as family. Grandpa's eyes didn't blink. You already chose lawyers, he said. You chose the bank at 6:48. You chose the registry. You chose the lockbox. That last word changed the line. My father's voice tightened. What lockbox? Grandpa waited one beat, long enough to let the lie form, long enough to let it hang in the air. Then he said, quiet and deadly, the one your cousin tried to open 10 minutes ago. Another silence. Then, faint in the background on my father's end, a muffled voice, female, too close to the phone. Don't say anything. My mother. Grandpa heard it. So did the attorney. So did I. Grandpa's mouth tightened at the corners, but his voice stayed controlled. I can hear her, he said. My father snapped, loud and sharp. She's not there. She is, Grandpa replied. And you're on speaker. And you're being recorded. That word, recorded, changed everything. My father's tone shifted instantly, like a mask dropping into place. Dad, he said, careful now, deliberate. This doesn't have to get ugly. We can handle this quietly. Grandpa gave him nothing. Tell me why you told my granddaughter to stay away from my attorney, Grandpa said. My father hesitated, just long enough. Then he tried to fill the silence with authority. Because she's unstable, he said. She's been having episodes. She twists things. Everyone knows. The attorney's pen stopped moving. Grandpa's eyes turned colder. Everyone doesn't know, Grandpa said. You want it on paper, so she sounds unreliable. My father raised his voice, defensive now. She's taking advantage of you. She has you in her kitchen, feeding you lies. I'm the one who brought the envelope, Grandpa said flatly. Not her. Silence again. Heavy. Thick. And then my father said the sentence that told me this was bigger than the cabin, bigger than the accounts. Dad, he said slowly, the court is already involved. My stomach dropped. The attorney's head lifted slowly, eyes sharp. What? Grandpa didn't react, outwardly. He just asked, calm and deadly, what court? My father tried to backpedal immediately. I mean probate, he said quickly. It's standard. The attorney reached for her keyboard and started typing fast. She didn't ask permission. She just did it. Grandpa watched her for 1 second, then looked back at the phone. You filed something, he said. My father's voice rose, panicked for the first time. No, he snapped. I didn't file. I inquired. Grandpa didn't argue. He let the attorney do it. She stared at her screen, clicked twice, then froze. And when she spoke, her voice was lower than before. Mr. Carter, she said to Grandpa, there is a filing. My skin went cold. My father heard her voice on the speaker and immediately jumped in. Don't listen to her, he barked. That attorney works for her. The attorney ignored him completely and kept reading. Emergency petition, she said slowly. Temporary guardianship. I felt my breath leave my body. Grandpa didn't blink. Guardianship, he repeated. The attorney's eyes flicked to me, then back to Grandpa. It claims you are mentally incapacitated, she said. It claims you're being exploited. My father's voice came through the phone, furious and triumphant at the same time. It's for your own good, he snapped. If you won't listen, the court will make you listen. Grandpa stared at the phone like it had become a foreign object. Then he spoke, quietly, with a calm so sharp it scared me. You tried to declare me dead at a bank, he said. And when that failed, he paused. You tried to declare me incompetent in court. My father didn't deny it, He leaned into it. "You're not thinking clearly," he hissed. "You're making decisions out of spite. The court will protect you from her." The attorney scrolled again, face tightening. "They requested an expedited hearing," she said. Today. Today." My heartbeat turned into a drum. Grandpa turned his head, slightly, and looked at me. Not fear, not sadness. Apology. Because he hadn't just predicted they'd try to take his property. He'd predicted they'd try to take him. Then the attorney added the line that made my stomach drop even harder. "And they listed your cabin address as your current residence," meaning they were trying to establish that he lived there, so they could control access through a court order tied to the property. Grandpa's voice stayed steady, but it went colder. "They planned this," he said. My phone buzzed again. Another alert from the cabin camera feed. The attorney glanced down at my screen and whispered, "What now?" I opened it. The sheriff units were still there. The locksmith was seated on the porch steps, pale and shaking. And my father's cousin, caught near the trailing, was now being walked back toward the driveway in handcuffs. But the deputy holding him wasn't looking at the cousin anymore. He was looking down at something in his hand, a folded piece of paper. The deputy unfolded it on camera, read one line, and his posture changed. Then he lifted his radio and said something I couldn't hear. The attorney leaned closer to my phone, eyes narrowing. "What is that?" she whispered. I zoomed in until the pixels broke, and I could still make out the top line of the paper the deputy was holding. Temporary guardianship order. Draft. A draft court order. Already prepared. Already printed. Already at the cabin. Like they were planning to serve at the moment the door opened. My throat went dry. Grandpa stared at the screen, then leaned toward the phone on the table, toward my father, still connected on speaker, and said in a voice that was barely above a whisper, "You brought the court to my front door." And my father's answer came back, low and satisfied. "Not yet. In part 3, I'm going to tell you what happened when we got to that cabin. I'm going to tell you about the thumb drive they recovered, about the fake witness statement with my name on it, about the hearing that was scheduled for 2 p.m., less than 6 hours away, where my father planned to have Grandpa declared incompetent while I was legally barred from the room. Because this wasn't just betrayal. This was a coordinated legal ambush designed to erase both of us in one day. Stay with me. You need to hear how this ends. My father's voice came through the speaker like a knife slid gently across skin. Quiet, confident, calculated. Not yet. Grandpa didn't shout. He didn't rage. He simply stared at the phone as if he was finally seeing my father with no illusions left. Then he ended the call. One tap. Silence. The attorney's office felt too clean for what had just been said inside it. "Okay," the attorney said, voice all business now. "We move fast." She opened a new document on her computer and started typing like she'd been waiting for this moment her entire career. "First," she said, "we file an affidavit that Mr. Carter is alive and competent. Second, we file an emergency response to the guardianship petition with evidence of fraud attempts." Grandpa nodded once, calm ready. "Use the call recording," he said. "And the bank alert," I added. "And the cabin footage," the attorney said sharply. "And the fact that your son attempted a death notification process at the bank at 6:48 a.m. She looked at Grandpa. "Mr. Carter, I need you to sign a statement right now." Grandpa took the pen without hesitation and signed with clean, steady handwriting. No trembling, no confusion, no doubt. The attorney printed it immediately and slid it into a folder marked Filed Today. Then she turned her monitor toward us. "There's a hearing request set for 2 p.m., she said. "They're asking for expedited temporary guardianship." Grandpa's eyes narrowed slightly. "They won't get it." "They can't get it," the attorney corrected, tapping the screen. "Not with this evidence." She clicked again, pulling up a list of attachments already uploaded on my father's filing, and my stomach dropped when I saw it. A supporting statement, a PDF, with my name on it, I leaned closer. That's not mine. The attorney opened it. It was written like I was a predator. It claimed Grandpa was confused, isolated, easily influenced. It claimed I had moved into his home, restricted access to family, controlled his medication. Medication? He wasn't even on medication. My throat tightened in disbelief. Grandpa's face stayed calm, but something behind his eyes hardened. They're building a story, he said. Yes, the attorney replied. A story designed to make a judge act fast. Then she scrolled down to the signature line, and we all saw the same thing at once. A typed name, not my father's, not my mother's, a third party, a witness. The attorney's voice went lower. That witness name, she said slowly, is your father's cousin. The one at the cabin, the one in cuffs, the one who had just been caught at the door with a locksmith and a draft court order in his bag. Grandpa exhaled through his nose, one controlled breath. So they wrote the script, he said, and they sent the actor to the stage. The attorney didn't waste a second. She made a call. Judge's clerk, she said into her phone. This is counsel for Mr. Harold Carter. We have an emergency response to a guardianship petition that includes evidence of an attempted fraudulent death notification, active unlawful entry attempt, and live video footage. She listened, then added, Yes, I can email it now and file immediately. She hung up and looked at Grandpa. Now we go to the cabin, she said, because if they're trying to serve a draft order there, we need to cut that off, physically too. Grandpa nodded. We're going. We drove back up the mountain with the sheriff's number saved and the attorney's evidence email already loaded. I kept screenshotting everything, call recording, bank alert, screenshots of the fake witness statement, the lockbox tamper log, the porch cam footage. When we turned into the cabin driveway, the scene looked like the aftermath of a storm. 2 sheriff units, deputies moving calmly but purposefully. The locksmith seated on the porch, pale and shaking. My father's cousin in handcuffs near the tailgate, head down, and a deputy holding a clipboard with paperwork. The same deputy I'd seen on camera earlier. He saw Grandpa step out of the truck and his eyes widened. Because you don't forget the face of the man you were told was dead. Mr. Carter, he said. Grandpa nodded once. Alive, he replied. The deputy's posture shifted instantly. From routine call to this is now a problem for the court. Sir, the deputy said, we recovered a printed draft order on site. He held it up. Temporary guardianship order. Draft. Who printed that? Grandpa asked. The deputy looked over at the cousin. He had it in his bag, the deputy said, along with a set of forms and a thumb drive. Thumb drive. My stomach tightened again. The deputy opened an evidence bag and showed the drive through the plastic. Also, he said, we recovered a folder labeled bank and another labeled property. Grandpa's jaw tightened slightly. The attorney wasn't there with us, but she'd told us what mattered most. Intent, planning, trail, and now it was all in a deputy's hands. My father's cousin finally spoke, voice strained, trying to sound helpful. I was just checking on the place, he said. He said they asked me to. Who asked you? The deputy cut in. The cousin hesitated. Grandpa stepped closer, calm but terrifying. Say his name, Grandpa said softly. The cousin swallowed, eyes darting. Then he said it. Your son. Grandpa didn't react. He didn't need to. The deputy wrote it down. Then the deputy looked at Grandpa again and said something that made my skin prickle. Sir, your son called our station earlier asking if we'd confirm you were deceased. Grandpa's eyes hardened. He called you too. The deputy nodded. Yes, and when we told him we couldn't verify, he said he had paperwork coming. Paperwork coming. The draft guardianship order wasn't a coincidence. It was the paperwork coming. I stepped onto the porch and looked at the cabin door. The lockbox was scratched. The door frame had fresh marks where the locksmith had worked. A violation, small but loud. Grandpa stepped up beside me, and looked at the wood like it was a wound. Then he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the sealed envelope. The attorney letter he'd kept unopened for hours. He held it out to me. "Open it here," he said. "Here." I whispered. "Here," he repeated, "where they tried to steal the ending." My hands shook as I broke the seal. Inside was a single page, simple, direct, notarized. An amendment. It didn't just deny my father access. It named him. It listed the fraud attempts as grounds for immediate restriction. It appointed an executor with explicit authority to freeze accounts and property access. And at the bottom was Grandpa's final line, handwritten unmistakable. "If anyone claims I'm dead, call the sheriff. If anyone claims I'm incompetent, play the recording." I covered my mouth with my hand, not crying, just stunned by how far ahead Grandpa had seen. The deputy read it over my shoulder and nodded. "That," he said quietly, "is about as clear as it gets." Grandpa looked out toward the trees, then back at the driveway where his cousin stood cuffed. Then he looked at me. "They called you to tell you you get nothing," he said. I nodded, throat tight. Grandpa's voice stayed calm. "They were right about one thing," he said. "You get nothing from them." He placed a hand lightly on my shoulder. "You get your life back." When we left the cabin, the deputies were still there collecting evidence. The executor was already being notified. The bank would receive the fraud affidavit by end of day, and the attorney would walk into that 2 p.m. hearing with a recording of my parents laughing about Grandpa's death while he sat alive at my kitchen table. But here's what I didn't know yet. Here's what I wouldn't find out until we got back to the attorney's office. The thumb drive the deputy recovered? It wasn't just documents. It was a full estate plan, rewritten, with my father as executor, with accounts redistributed, with beneficiaries changed, and every signature on every page was forged. My father hadn't just planned to declare Grandpa incompetent. He'd planned to replace Grandpa's entire will the moment the court gave him authority. Back at the attorney's office, we sat in the same chairs we'd sat in an hour earlier, but everything felt different now. The attorney had the thumb drive contents pulled up on her screen. She scrolled slowly, face getting tighter with each page. "This is comprehensive," she said. "This is an amateur hour." She turned the screen toward us. "Forged power of attorney. Forged advance directive. Forged trust amendment. And," she clicked again, "a forged death certificate template." My blood went cold. Grandpa leaned forward. "A template?" The attorney nodded. "Pre-filled. Just needs a doctor's signature and a date." She looked at Grandpa. They were going to finish what they started. I felt sick, not just angry sick, because my father hadn't just lied about Grandpa being dead. He'd prepared the paperwork to make it official. The attorney kept scrolling. "There's also a letter here," she said. "Addressed to you." She meant me. I looked at the screen. My name was at the top. The letter was short. It claimed Grandpa had passed peacefully. It claimed he'd wanted a small, private service. It claimed all estate matters had been handled in accordance with his wishes. And at the bottom, it thanked me for respecting the family's privacy during this difficult time. Translation: stay away. Don't ask questions. Accept what you're told. Grandpa read it over my shoulder. His hand tightened slightly on the armrest. "They wrote your goodbye for you," he said quietly. I couldn't speak. The attorney closed the file and looked at both of us. "This is evidence of conspiracy to commit fraud," she said. "This isn't just a family dispute anymore. This is criminal." Grandpa nodded slowly. "What happens now?" The attorney glanced at the clock. "The hearing is in 90 minutes. I'm going to present all of this to the judge. Your son will be there, expecting an easy win. Instead, he's going to walk into a courtroom where his fraud attempt is already on the record." She paused. "Do you want to be there?" Grandpa looked at me. I looked back at him, and I realized something important. I didn't need to be there. I didn't need to see my father's face when the judge read the evidence. I didn't need the satisfaction of watching him squirm. I'd already won, because I was sitting next to my grandfather, alive, coherent, and free. No, I said. I don't need to be there. Grandpa smiled slightly. Good, he said. Let the attorney do her job. We'll go home. The attorney nodded. I'll call you after. We stood to leave, but before we walked out, the attorney said one more thing. Your father made a critical mistake, she said. He assumed you were alone. I looked at Grandpa. He looked back at me. I was never alone, I said. We drove back to my apartment in silence. Not uncomfortable silence, the kind of silence that comes after a storm passes when you're too exhausted to talk but too relieved to care. When we got inside, Grandpa sat in the same chair he'd sat in that morning. I made coffee. We didn't talk about my father. We didn't talk about the hearing. We just sat. At 3:47 p.m., the attorney called. I put her on speaker. It's over, she said. The judge reviewed the evidence. The guardianship petition was denied. Your father was questioned under oath about the bank notification and the thumb drive. She paused. He admitted to the bank inquiry but claimed the thumb drive wasn't his. Was he arrested? Grandpa asked. Not yet, the attorney said. But the judge referred the matter to the prosecutor's office for investigation. And another pause. Your father's attorney withdrew from the case in the middle of the hearing. I blinked. What? He cited ethical concerns, the attorney said, which means he saw the evidence and realized he'd been lied to. Your father left the courthouse alone. Grandpa's expression didn't change. He just nodded once. Thank you, he said. One more thing, the attorney added. The judge issued a restraining order. Your father is not allowed to contact you, Mr. Carter, or attempt to access any of your accounts or properties. Violation is contempt. Grandpa leaned back in his chair. Good. After the call ended, we sat in silence again. Then Grandpa spoke. They thought you were weak, he said. They thought I was dying, I replied. They thought they could rewrite the ending, he said. I looked at him. But you already wrote it. Grandpa smiled. No, he said. I just made sure the pen stayed in my hand. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the morning in my head, the phone call, the laughter, the sealed envelope, the cabin, the thumb drive, all of it. And I realized something that made me sit up in bed. My father had spent years positioning himself as the responsible son, the one who handled things, the one who made the hard decisions. And the moment he thought he had control, the moment he thought Grandpa was gone and I was out, he showed exactly who he was. Not a son, a scavenger, not family, a thief. The next morning, I got a text from my mother. Just one line. This didn't have to happen. I stared at it for a long time. Then I blocked the number. Because she was right. It didn't have to happen. They chose it. They chose greed over honesty. They chose fraud over phone calls. They chose to erase me instead of including me. And now they were living with the consequences. In part 4, I'm going to tell you what happened in the weeks after. The prosecutor's investigation. The family members who suddenly had opinions. The voicemail my father left that the restraining order made illegal. And the moment I realized that the sealed envelope wasn't just about protecting Grandpa's estate, it was about protecting me. Because the biggest revenge wasn't taking anything from them. It was refusing to let them take anything from me. Stay with me. This is where everything comes full circle. 3 days after the hearing, my phone buzzed at 11:43 p.m. Unknown number. I almost didn't look, but something made me check. It was a voicemail from my father. The restraining order made contact illegal, but he called anyway, because people like my father don't believe rules apply to them, not until the consequences arrive with badges and paperwork. I didn't listen to it right away. I forwarded it to the attorney first. Then I sat on my couch in the dark and pressed play. His voice came through the speaker. Not angry, not apologetic, just tired, defeated. You think you won, he said. You think because you have lawyers and recordings and some judge on your side that this is over. But you didn't win anything. You just destroyed a family. I paused it, stared at my phone, then kept listening. Your grandfather is old, he continued. He's going to die soon. And when he does, you're going to be alone. No parents, no sister, no family, just you and whatever guilt you can live with. The voicemail ended. I sat there for a long time, waiting to feel something. Guilt, doubt, regret. Nothing came. Because here's what my father didn't understand, what he would never understand. I hadn't destroyed a family. I'd escaped one. The next morning, I forwarded the voicemail to the sheriff's office. The attorney called me 2 hours later. That's a violation of the restraining order, she said. Do you want to press charges? I thought about it, really thought about it. What happens if I do? I asked. He'll be arrested, she said. Booked. He'll have to post bail. He'll have a record. And it'll strengthen the prosecutor's case on the fraud charges. I looked out my window. The sky was clear. The sun was bright. It felt like a day where decisions mattered. Do it, I said. My father was arrested that afternoon. I wasn't there. I didn't need to be. The attorney sent me a text with one line. Booked at 3:15 p.m. Bail set at $5,000. $5,000. The exact amount he'd asked Grandpa for back in 2012 when he'd lost his job and times were hard. The irony wasn't lost on me. That same week, the prosecutor's office officially opened an investigation into the fraud attempts, the bank death notification, the forged documents on a thumb drive, the guardianship petition built on false claims. The attorney explained it to me over coffee at a cafe near her office. We sat outside because the weather was too nice to waste indoors. The prosecutor has everything, she said. The bank logs, the thumb drive, the witness statement your father's cousin gave after he was arrested. And now, with the restraining order violation, there's a pattern. What does that mean? I asked. She stirred her coffee slowly. It means your father is looking at multiple felony charges. Fraud, forgery, identity theft, and possibly elder abuse. Depending on how the prosecutor frames it. Elder abuse. I felt my stomach tighten. Will he go to prison? The attorney looked at me carefully. Possibly, she said. Or he'll take a plea deal. Pay restitution, probation, community service. It depends on what the prosecutor offers and whether your father is smart enough to take it. I thought about that. My father, smart enough. Those two concepts hadn't coexisted in a long time. 2 weeks later, I got a call from a family member I hadn't spoken to in years, my aunt, my mother's sister. She didn't call to apologize. She didn't call to check on me. She called to tell me I was being selfish. Your father made a mistake, she said, voice tight with judgment. But you're tearing the family apart over money. Do you know how that looks? I almost hung up, but something made me stay on the line. He didn't make a mistake, I said quietly. He committed fraud. He tried to declare Grandpa dead while Grandpa was sitting in my kitchen. He forged legal documents. He brought a locksmith to break into property that wasn't his. That's not a mistake. That's a crime. She huffed. You always were dramatic. I felt something snap inside me. Not anger. Clarity. If protecting my grandfather from being erased makes me dramatic, I said, then I'm fine with that label. She tried again. Your mother is devastated. She's not eating. She's not sleeping. You need to drop the charges and let this go. I laughed. Actually laughed. I didn't press charges, I said. The state did. Because what my father did wasn't just wrong, it was illegal. And if my mother is devastated, she can call me herself and explain why she laughed when she thought I was cut out of the will. Silence on the other end. Then my aunt's voice went cold. You're going to regret this. I hung up, and I didn't regret it, not even a little. A month after the hearing, Grandpa and I were sitting on his porch, the same porch where my father's cousin had tried to break in, drinking coffee and watching the trees. It was one of those rare Pacific Northwest mornings where the sun breaks through the clouds and everything feels clean. "How are you doing?" Grandpa asked. I thought about it, really thought about it. "I'm okay," I said. "Better than okay, actually." Grandpa nodded slowly. "You know what they're going to say, right?" "What?" He looked at me. "That you turned your back on family for money. That you manipulated an old man. That you're cold and calculating and selfish." I stared out at the trees. "Let them," I said. Grandpa smiled. "Good." We sat in silence for a few minutes. Then Grandpa spoke again. "I need to tell you something," he said. "The envelope. The one I brought to your kitchen that morning. I wrote it 3 years ago." I turned to look at him. 3 years. He nodded. "I saw it coming," he said. "Your father started asking questions about this state. Your mother started calling more often. They were positioning themselves. So I went to my attorney and I said, if anything happens to me, I want proof that I was sound of mind. I want a plan in place. And I want my granddaughter protected." My throat tightened. "You knew they'd try this." "I knew they'd try something," Grandpa said. "I just didn't know when." He took a sip of his coffee. "The day you stood up to them about that scholarship when you were 13, that's when I knew. I knew your parents saw you as something to manage, not someone to love. And I knew that if I didn't do something, they'd spend the rest of their lives making you feel small." I couldn't speak. Grandpa continued. "So I documented everything. Every loan your father never repaid. Every time your mother lied about why they couldn't visit. Every time they asked for money but never asked how you were doing. I kept it all. Not because I wanted revenge. Because I wanted proof." "Proof of what?" I asked. "That you mattered," he said simply. "That you weren't crazy. That you weren't imagining the way they treated you. That it was real and it was wrong and you deserved better." I wiped my eyes. Grandpa reached over and squeezed my hand. "The sealed envelope wasn't just legal protection," he said. "It was evidence that someone saw you. Someone believed you. Someone chose you." I couldn't hold it in any more. I cried. Not sad crying. Relieved crying. The kind of crying that happens when you've been holding your breath for years and someone finally tells you it's okay to exhale. Grandpa let me cry. He didn't try to fix it or minimize it. He just sat there, holding my hand, letting me feel it. When I finally stopped, he said something I'll never forget. "Your father called you to tell you you get nothing," Grandpa said. "But he was wrong. You get everything that matters. You get your dignity. You get your truth. You get your life. And you get to walk away knowing you didn't become them." 6 weeks after the hearing, the prosecutor offered my father a plea deal. 3 years probation. Full restitution to Grandpa for legal fees and damages. 500 hours of community service. And a permanent notation on his record that would show up on any background check for the rest of his life. The attorney called to tell me. He took it, she said. He didn't want to risk trial. I asked the question I'd been avoiding. Did he say anything? About me? About Grandpa? The attorney paused. He said he was protecting the family. I felt my jaw tighten. Of course he did. But here's the thing, the attorney continued. The judge didn't buy it. During sentencing, the judge said, and I'm quoting here, this wasn't protection. This was premeditation. You didn't act out of love. You acted out of greed. And the only reason you're not going to prison is because your father chose mercy. Grandpa chose mercy. Not me. Not the prosecutor. Grandpa. Because even after everything, even after the fraud and the lies and the locksmith and the forged documents, Grandpa didn't want to destroy my father. He just wanted to stop him. That's the difference between people like Grandpa and people like my father. One protects. The other takes. 3 months after the hearing, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. No return address. I almost threw it away, but I opened it. It was from my mother. Not an email, not a text, a letter. Like she thought the formality would make it mean more. It started with, "I hope you're happy." Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "I was wrong." Just, "I hope you're happy." The letter went on for 2 pages. She talked about how hard things had been, how humiliating it was to watch my father get arrested, how family members were asking questions she didn't know how to answer, how she'd lost friends because of what I'd done. Every single sentence was about her. Not once did she acknowledge what they'd tried to do to Grandpa. Not once did she mention the forged documents or the fake death notification or the laughter I heard on that phone call. The letter ended with one line, "When you're ready to apologize, we'll be here." I read it 3 times. Then I wrote one sentence on a blank piece of paper. "I'm not apologizing for refusing to be erased." I didn't send it. I didn't need to. I just needed to write it. For me. That night, I sat down with Grandpa and told him about the letter. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he asked one question. "Do you feel guilty?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. "No," I said. "I feel free." Grandpa smiled. "Then they lost." Here's what I need you to understand. This story isn't about revenge. It's not about inheritance or money, or who gets what when someone dies. This story is about what happens when people mistake silence for permission. My father thought that because I was quiet, I was weak. He thought that because I didn't fight back every single time they dismissed me or excluded me or made me feel small, that I never would. He built his entire plan on the assumption that I would stay quiet, that I would accept the narrative, that I would disappear when told to disappear. And he was wrong. The sealed envelope Grandpa brought to my kitchen that morning wasn't just a legal document. It was a message. It said, "You matter. Your voice matters. And the people who tried to silence, you don't get to win just because they're louder." Now I want to ask you something, and I need you to really think about this before you answer. If your family, your parents, your siblings, the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally, tried to erase you for money, would you fight back? Or would you stay quiet because that's what family does? Drop a comment and tell me, because I guarantee some of you are going to say I went too far. Some of you are going to say I should have forgiven them, taken the high road, let it go. And to those people, I want to ask, at what point does forgiveness become enabling? At what point does keeping the peace mean accepting abuse? At what point do you get to choose yourself? Because here's the truth nobody wants to say out loud. Some people don't deserve your forgiveness. Some people don't deserve a relationship with you. And some people need to face consequences, not compassion. My father did make a mistake. He made a choice. He chose greed over integrity. He chose fraud over honesty. He chose to erase me rather than include me. And when he got caught, he didn't apologize. He blamed me. That's not someone who deserves forgiveness. That's someone who deserves exactly what he got, consequences. So if this story resonated with you, if you've ever been made to feel like you don't matter by the people who should love you most, I need you to do something. Share this video, not because I need the views, because someone in your life needs to hear it. Someone needs permission to stop shrinking themselves to make other people comfortable. Someone needs to know that choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. And if you want to hear more stories like this, stories about people who refused to stay small, who set boundaries even when it hurt, who chose their peace over other people's approval, then you need to watch this next video. It's about a daughter who was written out of her parents' will because she wouldn't give them money, only to discover that her grandmother had already left her everything. And the moment her parents found out, absolutely perfect. Click it now, because the algorithm doesn't care about justice. It cares about what you watch next. Until then, remember this. You don't owe anyone access to your life just because you share DNA. You don't owe anyone forgiveness just because they're family. And you definitely don't owe anyone an apology for refusing to be erased. Your story is yours to write. Make sure you're holding the pen.